Ladies and gentlemen, now that Crown Jewel is in the rearview mirror, we can build up hype towards Survivor Series WarGames 2024, hailing out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And in the last couple of years, Survivor Series WarGames has been an absolute must-watch show because some of the biggest story elements of the entire year happen at this show. Take it from me, somebody that was on vacation during last year's Survivor Series WarGames and was this close to missing the return of CM Punk. Which, by the way, I can't believe it's going to be the 1-year anniversary of hell freezing over. So in today's video, we're going to try and predict the entire Survivor Series WarGames 2024 match card. I'm going to tell you what matches I think are going to happen. I'm going to try and also give you the reasoning as to why I think these matches could make sense. It's also important to note that I'm recording this immediately after Crown Jewel, so I haven't seen any episodes of Raw or SmackDown that could help me make this list. So although I do have some context as to where the show could go, I don't have everything to help me build out this card. So basically what I'm saying is be nice in the comments. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm really confident that you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And again, if you're looking for even more wrestling content, don't forget the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap, where we upload about 12 to 13 extra videos that never make the light of day on YouTube. So go check it out. Link in the description or link in the pinned comment. But all right, let's start the video. All right, folks, let's kick things off with one of the matches that was supposed to happen at Crown Jewel, but didn't happen at Crown Jewel because we had a giant ass brawl that prevented the match from happening in the first place. You already know where this is going. I'm going with Kevin Owens taking on Randy Orton in an unsanctioned match, or they could call it, I don't know, bloodline rules, or they could call it no disqualification, anything goes, false count anywhere, whatever it might be. This match needs to be violent. This match needs to be a follow-up and a proper representation of the hatred that these guys clearly demonstrated towards one another at Crown Jewel. This cannot be a regular ass normal match. No one will buy into it. And I'm sure WWE knows that this needs to have a major stipulation in place. If they really wanted to, they could up the ante of this and say that whoever wins is the #1 contender to Cody Rhodes' WWE Universal Championship. But frankly, I don't think that that makes any sense in the context of this particular feud because this isn't about materialistic goods at the moment. This is just two guys that hate each other. I don't see this being one of those matches that just plays out on SmackDown. I feel like the feud is too hot and the superstars are way too big to not have this be at one of the major pinnacle shows of the entire year, Survivor Series WarGames. Let's also not forget, if we want to add additional context, Kevin Owens is Canadian. The show's in Canada. I mean, you might as well have one of your Canadian boys on the card in a marquee showcase. I'm pretty sure that anyone that with a brain that's making these videos is gonna come up with this because it's just one of the obvious ones. But it is interesting to note that I don't have either of these guys going up against Cody Rhodes, and I feel like if Cody Rhodes has anybody to go up against with at Survivor Series WarGames, it would be one of these two guys. However, Cody Rhodes, because he hadn't been building really up to anything over the last month because he was building up to that exhibition match against Gunther, I don't see anything for him at Survivor Series WarGames at the moment. Meanwhile, these two are too preoccupied with one another. And even though both of these guys are the best options for Cody Rhodes, I have them busy with one another at Survivor Series WarGames. Look for this to be a very violent match. Look for this to potentially be one of those matches that warrants blood, a la CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. I don't know if it needs to be that bloody, but I do think that out of all of the matches, all of the feuds that we have on this card, this is the one that could give us that extra little bit of tomato sauce. Next up, let's look at what's going to happen over on Monday Night Raw with the women, because things are really murky right now with the current injury to Rhea Ripley, which we don't fully know how real the injury is, if it's a angle on TV or if she really is injured and they needed to write her off so that she could come back at a later time and have surgery or recovery time, whatever it might be. But that still leaves us with your new Crown Jewel champion and women's world champion, Liv Morgan, needing something to do at a major show. And I really think that WWE is going to be using Liv Morgan on this show to defend her women's world championship. The problem is that they haven't done a great job of building any contender for this world championship that isn't named Rhea Ripley, and Rhea Ripley isn't in the equation. So in an alternate universe, I actually would have had Liv Morgan take place in a women's WarGames match, but they haven't haven't done a great job of building groups of women on Monday Night Raw either. So I don't see the WarGames match being a Monday Night Raw showcase of their women's division. They just haven't done a great job of building it. So I have Liv Morgan in a singles match, and I have it against probably the best available opponent in Io Sky. They did have a little moment backstage that led to a tag team match that ended basically in no contest because of all the shenanigans with the Metaphor girls being involved. So there is still something here. And if the idea is to continue to build Liv Morgan to the point where she's an even bigger, badder final boss for Rhea Ripley, then maybe picking up victories against other really credible opponents like Io Sky is maybe the play here. So I have Io Sky challenging for the Women's World Championship against Liv Morgan at Survivor Series WarGames. I almost said Crown Jewel there. I gotta be honest, this isn't the best available thing that we could do, but this is what happens when WWE put Liv Morgan and that title in a vacuum against Rhea Ripley where nothing else mattered. So we need to catapult somebody as quickly as possible to be a realistic contender to Liv Morgan, and the one that you need to catapult the least because she's the most believable member of Monday Night Raw that already can just have an immediate foothold in the main event scene is Io Sky. I think that you could do Zelina Vega. You could do Lyra Valkyria if you wanted to. There are options, but you have such a small window to build those contenders to feel credible. So if you don't have the time to make them into credible contenders because there's such a short amount of time between now and Survivor Series, but then on top of that, Raw is just a shorter show, then you should go with the woman that needs the least amount of credibility building because her resume is already insane in Io Sky. Let's stick with Monday Night Raw and let's look at the World Heavyweight Championship match. I have Gunther defending, and I wish I was saying Dominic Mysterio, but I just don't think that that's the realistic option because WWE wants to protect Gunther. If they put him against Dominic Mysterio, it's all but over and we'd have a new world champion. But maybe in 2025, that'll be the day of Dirty Dominic Mysterio. But I do think that it's going to just be Damian Priest. Like, Damian Priest is a guy that still has a lot of main event aura. He never really got that opportunity to redeem himself for losing the World Heavyweight Championship in the first place to Gunther. So one, the match I know is going to be amazing because their match at SummerSlam was arguably the best match of the night. And two, there's plenty of justification to have Damian Priest immediately go after this prize. And three, you don't really need to build up Damian Priest because he already has that high tier main event style echelon that you can just insert him instantly into this feud. And we recently had Gunther and Damian Priest have a moment against one another backstage where Damian Priest basically called a shot that I'm going to earn this opportunity and I'm coming for that World Heavyweight Championship. And on the upcoming episode of Monday Night Raw, we do have a world title #1 contendership match that Damian Priest is in that I think he's going to win. So I think that this is the match that we get at WarGames. This one, I'm kind of just trying to fill out the card. Traditionally, Survivor Series WarGames over the last couple of years have only had 5 matches because the WarGames matches are so long. They're typically 35 to 45 minutes long. So I could see the mid-card titles having no effect on this card whatsoever. But because the US title was on the last PLE, maybe they make room for the Intercontinental Championship in this PLE. I've got Braun Breaker, and right now there's really nobody that's hovering around Braun Breaker at the moment. So I'm just going to say Sheamus is a best available option. We'll see. Sheamus is in the #1 contendership match. Maybe Braun Breaker gets involved, costs Sheamus the match, and this is what creates the catalyst for this match at WarGames. I'm not gonna lie, out of all of these, I have the least ties to this match to make it happen. This one really is just trying to fantasy book for the most part because there's just nothing right now for Braun Breaker because he's already removed from the Jey Uso feud and anything to do with the bloodline. So we're kind of at ground zero for anything related to the Intercontinental Championship, and an easy way to get from ground zero to hype would be to insert Sheamus, somebody that already gives us unbelievably good matches and somebody that has a lot of desire to win the gold that Braun Breaker is currently holding so that he can become that Grand Slam champion. I have this match, funnily enough, in my WrestleMania 41 match card prediction, but I could totally see it happening as early as Survivor Series WarGames.
Who? Jeff Hardy.
Oh,
God!
Oh my God!
God!
Oh! That, folks, was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we're looking at the legendary Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc. We have a meaty indie match between Jacob Fatu and Bronson Reed from House of Glory Wrestling. The first ever tag team ladder match between Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys at No Mercy 1998. We're also looking at an NXT Women's Triple Threat match between Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky. And the legendarily bloody John Cena versus John Bradshaw Layfield at Judgment Day 2005. You're going to get this plus the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, the weekly Undertaker WrestleMania watch-along that we're doing leading into WrestleMania, the currently going Royal Rumble watch-along that we're doing that leads into the Royal Rumble, and the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days earlier than everywhere else. Again, all of this is available on the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. Go check it out. I'll put the link in the description or the link in the pinned comment. If you're already supporting on Patreon, thank you. This is how we're able to do what we do as often as we do it. Just consider it, even if you try for 1 month, I'm confident that you're gonna fall in love with it. There's just so much content over there. But that's it, folks. Let's get back into the video. I think that just like Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, that this is one of those obvious follow-ups that WWE needs to do after what happened at Crown Jewel. We gotta run back Seth frickin' Rollins versus Big Bronson Reed. The match was fantastic, and even though Seth Rollins won, it didn't feel like he definitively won because Bronson Reed was still standing tall, laughing, smiling, bleeding, and Seth Rollins was saying, "What the F is wrong with you?" So there is still a lot more meat on the bone of this feud for us to give us a second, maybe even go to a third match. I would say that this could warrant a stipulation. I don't know, maybe it could be street fight, last man standing, because the allure of Bronson Reed is that even though he lost, he was still remaining standing at the end of it all. That being said, I'd be concerned that it's a last man standing match because we saw what happened with Nakamura and Seth Rollins in the last man standing match, where Nakamura basically chainsawed Seth Rollins in half and Seth Rollins still managed to get up. So maybe that's not the best option, but I do think that in some way, shape, or form, we're going to get the sequel to this great Crown Jewel match. I'm going to be super quick here, all right? The men's WarGames, it's pretty much all but confirmed at this point. It's going to be Jay, it's going to be Jimmy, it's going to be Sami and Roman Reigns, who I'm sure throughout the next couple of weeks will go through a reconciling period where they can come together. Power Puffs unite. I meant to say Power Rangers, Metamorph, whatever it is that Power Rangers do. Avengers assemble, and they're going to put their differences aside long enough to come together to take out the greater evil of the current iteration of the Bloodline. I don't think that this one necessarily took a lot of brain power to come up with, considering that this is so obviously where things are going based on how things ended at Crown Jewel, based on the fact that Sami Zayn has recently entered the picture, and based on the fact that Solo Sikoa recently pinned Roman Reigns. So this will continue to go, and this will continue to be the fuel of the main event scene right through to WrestleMania. So I hope you like Bloodline matches, because I feel like we're going to get Bloodline matches in this show and Saturday night's main event when Raw goes to Netflix. Wouldn't be surprised if we get it at Royal Rumble as well. So this is going to be the main event as well, I predict. For the women's side of the equation, this one is so up in the air. Something tells me, and obviously I have no sources for this, that WWE was trying to build up Pure Fusion Collective to eventually be a group that could go into Survivor Series WarGames. But me, you, and nobody else around the world wants to see Pure Fusion Collective anywhere near a PLE card, let alone Survivor Series WarGames. And clearly, apparently not even Monday Night Raw, because they're not even appearing on that anymore. So I feel like the course direction towards Pure Fusion Collective is just not the play anymore. So we're going to have to get a little bit creative here. So I'm going to say that it also goes to SmackDown, because they've got the bigger women's division that's been blossoming around the title, the women's tag team division. So here's what I've got. I've got Bianca Belair, who's a veteran of WarGames at this point. We also have Jade Cargill, their tag team champions. That makes sense. I have Naomi to continue to develop this friendship that they have as part of the Big Three that dates all the way back to early last year. And then the outcast Bailey, who of course Bianca Belair has giant, massive beef with. So that could be a really interesting story that is told throughout the buildup of this match. And in the match itself is the divide between Bianca Belair and Bailey, which I think could really be a fascinating tale. On the other end, I've got Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green has to be part of this show. This is basically her backyard. She's from Victoria, BC, which is like a stone's throw away from Vancouver. So this is basically a home game for Chelsea Green. They gotta have Chelsea Green on this show. I got Piper Niven. So again, just kind of continuing not only to develop the main event scene of the women's side of Friday Night SmackDown, but to continue to develop the blossoming women's tag team division as well, giving them yet another spot on a PLE. I've also got Tiffany Stratton, and then you probably guessed it, Nia Jax. This kind of rounds out what I think would be a really entertaining women's WarGames match, a easy to construct and justify women's WarGames match. It's just a shame that we can't give the women's WarGames to Monday Night Raw, because it now means that SmackDown has both of the WarGames matches. And that's it. And aren't you kind of surprised that I don't have Cody Rhodes on this card? I mean, I kind of am. I really thought that this man had the John Cena schedule, but as it turns out, there's a lot of rumblings that Cody Rhodes is not going to be going to Survivor Series WarGames and won't have a match. He recently tweeted out the schedule of all of the dates that he's got scheduled for November, and interestingly enough, Survivor Series WarGames has been left off of that list. And the fact that Randy and Kevin Owens are likely going to be busy with one another maybe just kind of justifies that Cody Rhodes isn't going to be there. I think that he likely won't be, which I think is crazy, but hey, it is what it is. This card would already be stacked either way, and the fact that there's two WarGames matches that will all be really, really long tells me that, you know, maybe this doesn't need the star power of Cody Rhodes to be one of those major PLEs. But that's it, folks. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That's it. I'm done. Get out of here.